It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, February 6th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is so excited to get back into Flyers hockey tonight.
I missed all hockey. Like, just give me hockey.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. You'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Getting the uncomfortable news out of the way first, the London police in Ontario had their press conference yesterday regarding the 2018 case. And I would say, number one, it did not go well for the London Police Department, but
I
also,
think they knew that. Like, they
yeah,
knew
they did.
they're trying to right a wrong. Like, I think the chief actually came across very sincere.
I would say yes, but also he was doing a little CYA there
Sure,
as
no question,
well.
no question.
But they couldn't say much, because of the legal proceeding. But I think it's very clear that this is being taken extremely seriously moving forward, and it's going to be a long process for all involved.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a long, costly process, and we feel horrible for the victim for sure. And I think after hearing even some of the little things, it's pretty severe as far as all involved. And so, like, yeah, you know, it's going to be a big deal. So, as far as the Flyers concerned, now we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I think, what we did learn is that all of the NHL teams involved, so including the Devils and the Flames, are going to get cap relief for all of these players. And I think that, they're all RFAs. Everybody's basically going to cut ties and move
Right.
on. That's kind of what we need to do too, because once they cut ties, um, you know, it's no longer an issue for the Flyers moving forward, other than
Right.
the goaltending situation.
Well, and that's the thing. It's I've been listening to things from a national perspective about the goaltending situation, and people have been like, well, Sam Erson's had, been pretty good. I mean, Erson leak going into the break was a different goalie. And I get it that the team wasn't good in front of him either, but he wasn't as good as he was either. So the Flyers are back to having a question mark in net. I mean, I hate to say that because he just doesn't have a track record as being a starting goalie in the league. And we've
Right.
seen how hard it is. So yeah, it's the that part of it is going to last this entire season for the Flyers.
Yeah, I think so. But it's an opportunity for the rest of the team to kind of rally around
Yes.
Sam Ersson. And
Yes.
I think, kind of transitioning into what we learned from the return to practice after the All-Star break. I'm pretty sure that's why they're going to likely go with 11-7. I think
I'm not giving any excuses. Forget it. I don't
it's
even
not an
care.
excuse, it's an explanation.
Yeah, no, I know.
You
I said
know,
I'm not going to give any excuses because I don't care who's in net. 11-7 has been a bad idea. It's been a losing idea. And now you're going to go and play the red hot Florida Panthers really fast, and you're going to wear out your forwards again against a team like that who could roll four lines. But other than that, it sounds like a great idea.
we'll see what it turns out to be, in actuality here.
Sure.
But I think that that's likely what's going to happen here because, again, he doesn't want to keep Zamula out. I found it interesting that they switched up some pairings, but not breaking up Sealer Walker, which is something we talked
We
about
did. We said just move him down the
specifically.
rung. We
Yeah.
definitely mentioned that 100%.
So it seems like they are the third pairing now, Sealer
Right.
Walker, with Zamula as the extra, but it's Sanheim and Risto back together, and then York and Drysdale was the combo in practice. Again, we don't know if that's what it's going to be in the game, but I thought that was interesting.
It is interesting, and there needs to be a day where Zamula is not the extra because Zamula's really played well, and this compromises, the time on the ice that he can get. And again, so does it? I forget. This means Lixell's in the lineup, right?
Well, it was Delorier and Lixell trading off on that fourth line
So it
wing
doesn't mean it. Yeah, it
position.
could be Delorier,
Yeah, I'm guessing Lixell is in, but,
right?
it could go either way.
See, the problem
We
is
don't know yet.
if it's Lixell, it's a good thing that he gets in, but it's a bad thing if he can't keep line mates for the entire game, which he can't on an 11-7 basis. So it's like it doesn't do him any favors that he's got line mate, his line stays intact for like 2 shifts in that game, and then all of a sudden stuff starts changing. You know what I mean? That doesn't help a young player.
Right. And it'll depend on what else they decide to do. If like somebody else has to get scratched in the
Right.
end as well. We don't know how that is going to
No.
play out because my guess is that he's not going to scratch Lawton or Hathaway. So maybe both of
No.
them get scratched. It'll
Yeah, it's
it'll
possible.
just it is very, very possible. Um, I think it's interesting as far as the return of Owen Tippett as well, because that is the factor that makes it so you have to scratch both of them. But it's good that Owen Tippett is coming
Oh,
back.
sure, they
Don't
needed
get me
him. There's
wrong.
no, they need him. No
Yeah, and
question.
Torts said as much because obviously he knows the team really missed his speed and his energy, and his production, and I think that made a huge difference in some of those losses.
Yeah, no question. But I do want to point out something. So like the first day back for the Islanders, they had a 45-minute practice. First day back for the Sabres, they had like a 48-minute practice. They actually put the Zamboni to the ice, a break from practice. Now we weren't at practice, but I think people would have written had it been an exceptionally long practice, and it wasn't. And I feel like it should have been based on the way they finished out going into the break, starting these new things, and maybe doing something with the power play. So I mean, to me, I don't understand why that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think again, just explanation. I think that what Torts did more of a skating practice to get the legs back for the first one, and then the morning skate, they were gonna work on some stuff. That was what he had said. But I think that, we'll see whether it works or not and how it pans out against the Florida Panthers, who are again coming off a 4-game win streak. Now, with the break, you never know
No, I mean,
how
there's no momentum
streaks.
coming out of the break, and honestly, watching
Right.
games of teams that came out of the break, the first period's going to be ugly, no matter
Yeah,
what.
I think so. I think so. I think that one of the huge factors will be that they probably haven't had to travel as much unless any of the Florida Panthers decide to go on vacation, but they're already in a warm spot. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and Bob
But
looked good. Bob looked good in the All-Star game, so
yeah, he did.
they got to face him too.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to talk more about the Florida Panthers and get a little bit into our Phantoms Tuesday report coming up next.
Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. I mean, right now I'm in Detroit. Maybe I'll bring some Detroit ingredients home for the Super Bowl. Detroit pizza is really good. Just telling you, it's got a lot of different cheeses. Um, but as far as the game, I still would bet the over. I think Brock Purdy and Pat Mahomes are both going to put up a lot of points. So, for what that's worth, FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or two or three. Not only can you bet who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's fanduel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
On tomorrow's show, of course, we will recap this game we're talking about against the Florida Panthers. Plus, we'll have your mailbag questions. So get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. You can comment over on our YouTube or send us a message over on Twitter as well. The Florida Panthers are a very tough team, and you just look at their top two lines, and it kind of says it all. With Barkov and Reinhardt together, and then you have Sam Bennett with Carter Verhaeghe and Matthew Tkachuk. That is like a
Oh
really
yeah.
tough top six there.
I mean, Reinhardt's one of the best players in the league, one of the best scorers. So you can't lose track of him. It's easy to say we're going to shut down Barkov. It's much harder to say we're going to shut down Barkov and Reinhardt. Good luck with that.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So I think, what we've been talking about with the Flyers defensive structure, and trying to choke things off at the neutral zone, I think is going to be really important.
Yes,
I think that that's something that had maybe let up a little bit over the last few games before the break, in terms of stopping momentum before the opposing team hits the blue line, as opposed to having to then regroup again, once the other team gets set up in the zone. So that's going to be crucial, especially against this top six.
and a big matchup's going to be Sean Couturier against Barkov in the faceoff dot. Like, because Barkov is one of the best in the league. Couturier is really good too, but he's not at Barkov's level right currently.
Yeah, it is interesting with this team, though, that there is an opening here for the Flyers. Looking at some of their numbers, one of the typical things we've seen when we compare like the NHL Edge stats is
Yeah,
that, the Flyers are better at speed or, shot speed and number of shots on goal, but then the shooting percentage is way off. The overlap is almost identical between these two teams, and
yeah,
the Panthers actually don't have a tremendously strong shooting percentage here. They just happen to finish a slightly better, than the Flyers do, and so they have more goals, but I think the key is they also spend a little bit more time in the offensive zone
they
than the
do.
Flyers do, and that gives them those additional opportunities to score, but they are stoppable here, you
Yeah, no
know?
question. I mean, that there's you make a good point there. It's just that first line has the puck a lot, and you've got
Yeah,
to try and limit that, and
yeah.
that's where the battle lies.
Yeah, and I think that's where it boils down to with, the Panthers are second in the NHL in scoring chances for percent and high danger chances for percent right now. And, you look at it in all situations, you look at it on 5, it's the same. But, their power play is fine. Their penalty kill is fine. I think that obviously the Flyers penalty kill is better because it's the second best in the NHL. But I think that the opportunity is there for the Flyers here.
Yeah, the only thing is, and this will be a big challenge for Morgan Frost, that Verhaeghe, Bennett, Matthew Kachuk line is dynamite too, and that's tough. Evan Rodriguez is one of those guys that does score
Ugh,
shorthanded goals. He could be a
I
real
love
thorn.
Evan
Yeah,
Rodriguez. Let me tell you, I have wanted him to be a Flyer for a very
yeah.
long time, and it has never panned out.
He could be a big thorn in the side. So, those top two lines are great. Kachuk's going to stir it up. If Nick Cousins is back, he's going to stir it up. Uh,
Yeah.
and Brandon Montour is no joke. Like his offense is tremendous. Like anything you want, Travis Sanheim to be, Montour is at that next level for Sanheim to kind of shoot for, and Ekblad's Ekblad. I mean,
Right.
he's you don't necessarily want to go down his side. So these are the things, depending on how many minutes those guys get, the matchups are really going to be important.
Yeah, and I think, one of the other things about the Panthers is that they tend to keep leads when they get them.
Yeah.
And so, you look at their scoring by period, you look at, goals per game, and when they tend to win those one goal games way more than they lose them. So I think that is huge in terms of not giving goals up early, so you feel like you have to come back in this one because it's going to be much harder to do so against the Panthers.
Yeah, the worry in this one is in the third period, let's say you're down or it's tied, and now you've got your top 6 and the Flyers playing X amount of minutes. They're going to be playing more minutes than the top 6 of the Panthers, and that could be a
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah, I think so too. But it should be a fun game. I
Yeah, I
think
think
it'll
so.
be it'll be a good matchup, and I'm excited to get back into it for the Flyers. In the meantime, our Lehigh Valley Phantoms, bit of a roller coaster of a week for them.
Yep.
There is lots of celebration and lots of disappointment, I would say,
And
across
this has
the
become the
board.
norm with them.
Yeah, I think so. The Phantoms had their 10th anniversary celebration on Saturday night. That's, of course, 10 years in Lehigh Valley in Allentown.
And if you haven't seen a
Um,
game, it's a tremendous place to see a game. The rink's great, the people are great. The coated pretzel, or not pretzel, coated cashews or peanut guy is great. Like I always go there. So yeah, I have a lot of fun when I go there.
yeah, it's they did a really good job. They had a lot of alumni back, including Greg Carey, Colin McDonald,
Hmm.
Sam Moran was there as well, although he was kind of working
Yeah,
at the same
he's
time.
got to be there no matter
Um,
what.
Right, right. Lots of Flyers management there, mostly, because it was the All-Star break and they could, but also to celebrate that 10th anniversary. But Briere was there, Leclerc was there, Alan McCauley. So everybody was on deck at the home games this past weekend, which was good to see. Unfortunately, one win, two losses for the week. They were facing the Hershey Bears for two of those three games, and they split those, which, I think against Hershey is probably a pretty good result,
It
all in all.
is, but they're going to play Hershey a lot the rest of the
Yeah.
season, and at some point they're going to have to get the upper hand, or it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think the more disappointing aspect was that big 10th anniversary celebration game on Saturday, losing to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, who is very beatable, 3-1. I think
Yeah,
that was very painful. That game was very frustrating to watch overall in terms of, so many chances for the Phantoms, and they just could not get one to go until very, very late in the game when they pulled the goaltender and was 6-on-5.
yeah. It's just they they can't seem to get enough weekend momentum
Yeah.
to carry over and have like 2 good weeks in a row. It seems almost impossible for this team to do it. Now, if I remember correctly, because I think I watched some of it, in that win, that was Felix Sandstrom, right?
Yes, it was because
And so that's the
Samstrom.
one positive in
Yeah.
that is if he can look better in some of his starts, I think, and this is just me, there'd be a chance for him to get called up this year, or there should be, based on the fact that Cal Peterson's just not reliable. And so if Sandstrom can find himself, that would be a big thing for him. He might be able to get some NHL time.
Right. So he played both the games against Hershey, and then Parker Gahagan played the game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So I think that was what they wisely decided to do as far
Yeah.
as the goaltending this past weekend. Yeah, I think that the other big thing to come out of it was that Brink had gotten off to a really good start last week, with his time with the Phantoms. Didn't get on the board. I believe he had 1 assist this weekend. But it was kind of, as far as who did stand out, as much as you can in this situation, the line of Elliot Denoye, Wade Allison, and Brendan Furry, especially in that win against Hershey, they were by far the strongest, with Allison having a goal and an assist. Denoye had 2 assists, and then Furry had a goal and an assist, and they were definitely the best line out there in this game.
Yeah. No, and that's fine. I'm looking more at the defensive pairings because they're almost doing what we want, but not quite. And I don't understand why for a weekend they can't keep the pairings the same. Please explain why. And again, with these young developing players, it's the best thing for them. How are you getting continuity if you can't keep these guys together for more than, a game at a time?
Right. I think there's some issues with, the fact that they're losing, that they also do some scrambling during the games. So I wouldn't say that
Okay, I
they,
mean that's fair, but
yeah,
doesn't mean the game shouldn't all start the same.
right. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I do. I think that especially with Emile Andre this season, I
Yeah.
think having a consistent partner
Yeah, it would really
um,
help them.
would be very helpful. I think they do that to some degree, but not as much as they should,
And I'm
especially,
worried that the deeper their hole gets, the worse this is going to get.
yeah, because, they're gonna sorta get more focused on winning than in
Right.
terms of the prospect development side, which
Right.
I get. It happens. It
Yeah.
does. But there was also AHL All-Star weekend with Samu Tuomaala participating, and there's more to talk about with the Phantoms and looking ahead to this week's action. And we will do that coming up next. Well, we are well into the peak portion of the season. And regardless of where the Flyers are right now, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football on Sleeper, and entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether NHL superstars like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, or Austin Matthews, plus Flyers All Stars like Travis Konechny, will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail those picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league like Locked On NHL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe. So it was All-Star weekend for the AHL, and it was out in San Jose where the Barracuda play. And I hadn't really seen that arena before because, the Phantoms don't play the Western
No.
teams. And I knew, obviously Barracuda had a separate arena in San Jose for their AHL team. It is really nice.
Yeah, it's really
And
nice. I've never been there, but
yeah.
looking at it, it looked great.
Yeah, and I think that, it made me think back to when the Phantoms played across the street at the Spectrum and how cool that was. Although this arena that the Barracuda play in was much
Oh
nicer
yeah. I
than
mean,
the
I,
Spectrum
at
at
that
that point.
at the last Flyers game that was at the Spectrum, the seating was so limited for media. They had sat us like up at the top perch where like the radio crew used to be and stuff, and there was like
Yeah,
4 inches of dust up there. They were like
yeah.
old solo cups, like it was bad.
Yeah. But where the Cuda play is shiny and new. And
Yeah.
of course, Samu Tuomaala was out there representing the Phantoms. And it seemed like he was having a really good time out there. I think that it was probably nice for him to get to know some of the other guys
Yeah.
on the other teams. And I would say that his skills competition, wasn't the greatest, but I would say it was very weird to me that he was not in fastest skater. Um, that was very upsetting to me because of all the competitions I would have
Right.
thought he would have gotten in there. So they put him in hardest shot, which, he is a good shot, but
He
I
has a
would
good
not
shot, but
say
it's not hard. Yeah.
it's not super hard. So he came in 5th out of
Nah.
8, and he did not do great on the accuracy shooting, which also does not surprise me.
No.
But, he went 2 for 8, but, he still looked like he was having a good time out
That's all
there,
that matters.
and yeah. And his
Considering the
team
way his last couple of years have gone overseas, at least this is gonna
yeah.
be a really nice highlight year for him.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. The Atlantic Division lost in the finals of their 3-on-3 tournament to the Pacific 3-2. It was pretty heartbreaking. The Pacific scored with like 15 seconds left
Oh,
in
yeah.
the final. But he had 3 total assists in the tournament, which
Okay.
was really good to see. He also had a really great shot, I thought, which we thought was a goal, but it turned out that it was a deflection. But yeah, I think he looked pretty good out there as
Well,
part
good for
of
him. He
the
had a nice
Atlantic
showing.
Division team. Yeah, he
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
did. I think overall, and I certainly hope he had a good time. In the meantime, the Phantoms have another week ahead to try and get back some points here, and they are playing Friday and Saturday. One home game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton again, who they just struggled mightily
Yeah.
against, and then on the road at Bridgeport on Saturday.
Win 2 games, that's all I'm saying. Just you gotta start winning 2 games. Because 'Cause
Yeah,
they're not gonna
yeah,
drop any lower in their division, it's almost impossible. They're
right.
not gonna hit 8th, but they've gotta start gaining points in 7 or it could be a problem.
Yeah, there was a while where that middle group of teams were pretty close
Yeah,
together, but it's starting to divide a little bit. And,
yeah.
there's a limited opportunity here for teams to get back into it. And so I think this is where it's going to be extremely important to not fall further behind. Right now, they are 3 points behind the Charlotte Checkers. They do have 2 games in hand at the
Yeah.
moment in the standings, but,
And might I
you know
add, I will add this. If the Flyers are gonna continue with this 11-7 stuff and Lixell doesn't play, then just send him down because they need him with the sitting the bench doesn't help him in Philly, or playing 8
no.
minutes wouldn't help Philly. Then just send him down, at least the Phantoms could use his help.
Yeah, and he would definitely get the minutes there. But yeah, we'll see how that goes for the Phantoms. We'll see how it goes for the Flyers versus the Panthers. We are going to recap that game on tomorrow's show, as well as answer your mailbag questions. So make sure you get them in via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.